Hello everybody. How are you? I hope you're well. I kind of am. I've got this cold at the moment, which is meaning that my head is all gunked up inside it. My nose is not so bad, it's the thinking. It's just so sluggish. We have a saying in our family that when you're having a hard time with being able to think, because you've got something like a cold or something like that, then it's like chilled molasses, which is very, very, very slow. Molasses is like treacle or golden syrup. It's actually between the two. And when you chill it, when you put it in the fridge, it becomes almost solid, but not quite. You can scoop it with a spoon, but try and dribble it off the spoon. Nah, it's not going to do anything. Anyway, so that's how I am at the moment. Occasional coughing and a few things like that. But other than that, reasonably okay. So we'll just see how it goes today with the stream. I will try not to push my voice too hard. You can hear it sounds a little bit lower pitched and it's slightly gravelly around the edges too, but we'll just see how we go. Anyway, so if you're not well, I hope we can provide some light entertainment for you. If you are new here, hi, I'm Jev. I read old children's books such as these ones here. Can't find them. These sort of ones here. Yes, that one that's invisible actually is a funny green colour. Over 100 years old, 115 years old, I think it is. Yeah, there you go, that sort of thing. They're ones that have been in the family for a wee while, actually all of their life, basically, since they were sold. Sorry. And I grew up reading these old books because they were the books that were available in the house. Otherwise, you had to go and get books from the school library, which is where I discovered things like Swallows and Amazons and Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and all that sort of stuff, none of which really fit into the sort of reading I do because they are not public domain books. I did get in contact with the trustees of Arthur Ransom's estate. He's the guy who wrote Swallows and Amazons and that series, and unfortunately they are not giving me permission to read them. So just have to wait for another 10 or 15 years and then I'll be able to read them. So if I'm still doing this, you'll be able to come along then and listen. They would be so much fun because they're children that are having adventures that they've created. Yes, as appropriate, they get permission from their adults, such as their parents and stuff like that. But they go off sailing and camping in small boats and things like this. Yes, they did get back to me. The trustees got hold of it's a team effort for the copyright administration for his estate, his literary estate. And you've got the trustees who make day-to-day decisions about various aspects of other things as well to do with Arthur Ransom, places of interest that they have control over and things like that, but also the publisher that is the current copyright holder. And so they talked it through with them and the trustees, and the decision was at this stage, no, they weren't going to give me permission. Maybe sometime in the future they will. That would be nice. One of the things that was encouraging, not so much for me as a reader, but in terms of what happens with their use of funding that comes from the sale of his copyrighted works, is that they actually have a small writers fund where they are actually trying to support writers who, I don't know what the criteria are, but writers who really are not big name and do not have a lot of clout behind them. But they are published, but sorry, I'm going to have a drink. So writers who actually are published, but not really well known, not thriving. This is obviously in England, I would say, the majority of this work. But they are putting the funding from their various endeavours that give them profit from the sale of his works into this trust-administered fund to actually support people in writing type creative work to help them to actually go further than they otherwise would if they didn't have that sort of funding behind them. And I love the fact that they're doing that. And it was, I really am going to have to get some. Oh, goodness me. Just as well it wasn't like this yesterday. And I will have to shut that bag or the ants will get into them. It's a throat lozenge, a Vicks thing. And I've generally found it helps when my throat goes all dry and tickly. So I'll shut the bag. Yes, it's very noisy. We all come here to listen to the weird noises that happen on my stream, don't we? Yeah, I'm just taking them. Thanks for checking. And these ones work really well for me. This particular flavour is called Cherry Menthol. I don't really like their other ones. Excuse me. Now I'm getting too warm. Make sure you have lozenges available. Always have some in storage and wherever you live in case you can't get out. If you get crook, that's ill if you're English, or sick if you're anything else. If you get crook, that's New Zealand, and you can't get out and you don't have access to like online shopping where they'll deliver it for you for very small amounts, it's good to know that you have something available that's going to help you. And once I've sucked this enough, it will make a big difference. And in case you're wondering, this is my current t-shirt, which is, I've just realised it's going to be see-through because of the green on it. So this is Quest Sprout. He's a cute little character that a friend in Wellington, which is a city that's down south of us here in New Zealand, draws and writes in his webcomics called Swords Comic. And he's great. And no, you're right, it's not an endorsement nor a sponsor, definitely not. They're just the ones that I found that help me. I just need to try and suck it enough that it's going to make a difference. Excuse me a moment. Chat amongst yourselves. Right. Hopefully those are coming through. I'm just seeing the Stream Elements notifications. Those are coming through on the timer that I set up, so that they don't all come exactly at the same time, but we'll see what happens. Because I don't think Goriki typed those ones in. Anyway, right. We'll get there. Right, so yes, they got back to me, and I was delighted that they got back to me. I was really disappointed that they said no, but I was delighted that they did get back to me and say, we have thought about it. Because a lot of those organisations, like big name publishers, just don't. We lived in England for 4 years, and one of the things we noticed over there is if a business said that they would get back to you, like phone you back if you phoned them and you needed some additional information or something like that, never happened. And that we're talking about a business that's based in England. And they got back to me, so that was really good. Anyway, we'll see what happens. It may be something in the future that I can get permission. As far as they know, I'm a nobody. I'm not going to actually build their brand in any way, so that's okay. We'll get there. We'll impress them suitably at some stage. They'll be clamouring to have me read their books with my random as chats and interpretations of things. That would be good, wouldn't it? Right, I'm just going to turn on the jigsaw for those of you who want to do the jigsaw puzzle. I don't think there's anything else I need to turn on. It says I've joined the game. That's just because I set it up. So if you want to, you just type into the chat box !jigsaw or !puzzle. There's probably a few other shortcut versions of that, but you're most welcome to have a play on the jigsaw puzzle, and I tried to make it so it wasn't too complicated. And if you're over on YouTube, I'm really sorry you don't get this opportunity. Maybe you can dig out a box of jigsaw puzzle pieces or something like that while you're listening to the story, unless you just want to watch me pulling weird faces and all that sort of thing. So Goriki, for those of you who don't know, is one of our readers in Codex. Codex, you can see the logo down there on my overlay if you're on Twitch. Codex is a group of people who read public domain books and books that they have expressed permission to read that are still within copyright on Twitch live so that you can listen. Some of us put the recordings of our readings over on YouTube. I do. I'm trying to think. No, it doesn't show there yet. I'm just going to give you a command for that. So if you are on Twitch and you want to see books that I've read before that are no longer available on Twitch because Twitch only holds them for 2 weeks, then what you do is you go over to YouTube. Here, there you go. I'll try and put it so my top is behind it so you can read the letters. It's very simple. It's the same username. Even if all you do is type in that username, jevvv, no dots, no capitals, no nothing, and it's always got 3 V's if it's my one, jevvv, into the search box, you will still find me. Now, I put the books over there in playlists so you can listen to a whole book. It will still have all my chat. It will still have all my fumbling around and everything else like that. I think the only time I've ever edited something out was where a friend of, excuse me, oh, I think I'm very glad I have a limiter on my microphone output, sorry, for you guys. Oh, that would have been loud. Anyway, so, that's not so good. A friend of mine and I were chatting away while I was between chapters or something like that about hair cutting and hairdressing and all this sort of stuff. And because it was just her and I talking, and I didn't actually read out all of her comments or anything else like that, unfortunately, it didn't have any relevance for what was going on with the book, so I ended up taking out that segment. But other than that, in the time that I had a bunch of, they appeared to be teenage boys, come in and decide that they were going to be disruptive and make rude comments and ask me to show them things and all sorts of stuff like that. I took that whole section out. It didn't show on screen, but the most powerful thing I did at the time, because my computer actually froze up. It was still recording, it was still broadcasting, but I couldn't interact with it. I had to wait for it to catch up so that I could then use some commands on it. So the most powerful thing I could do at the time was to sit there and not engage with them. So I just looked at my monitor and I looked at the camera, and then I looked at the monitor and I looked at the camera for 5 minutes or so. Basically, they got bored and went away. I also did ban them so they couldn't come back. But so what I was going to tell you was about Go Reki. Go Reki is one of our readers, and sorry, I'm just trying to type, and my keyboard's now over here, and I'm used to it being here. But I've got my book, so it's not in front of my monitor, so that's good. So Go Reki's one of our readers, but he's also really, really good on streaming security. So if you join the Codex Discord, I'm just looking through... Yes, so the first of those bits that came up in chat was the bit about Codex, and it's got the link for our Twitch team, which hasn't got all of our readers in it yet. They haven't all filled in their details so that they can actually be on the official Twitch team. They will hopefully soon. But you'll always be able to see who's currently live if you go to our Twitch team page. So that link that I've put up there about Codex for the Twitch team will take you to the page about the Twitch team, but also down below my video window on Twitch, when I'm live, otherwise on my About page, there's a section there with a round circle icon with the book and the mouse logo that we have for Codex. And if you click on that, that will also take you to the Twitch team page for Codex, and you'll be able to see who's currently live, which is a great way to find out who's currently reading. So Go Reki does stream. He reads out loud, especially things like Japanese fairy tales, old Japanese fairy tales, and there's quite a variety of them. Some of them are really odd. They don't finish the way we would finish them. But then if you read old versions of Grimm's fairy tales, they don't always finish the way we expect them to either. We're used to the Disneyfied version of fairy tales. They're quite different to a lot of the originals. But he reads, and he also plays games, which a lot of our readers do. But on top of that, he will often talk about streaming security. So that's keeping up the community health of your page, of your setup, so that every time you go live, you haven't got a whole bunch of people who are piling in and disrupting everything and basically stealing other people's information or being recipients of gifted subs, which your own community, the people who support you, are trying to give to others in your community. And these bots and things like that are coming in, and they are eligible to receive them, and so people who really like you and support you are not getting those. It's just going to these bots who don't gain anything by it. It's basically just, yeah. And there's a whole lot of other things that can happen too. So if you join the Codex Discord server, which is also in that link that I gave you before in the chat over there, that's where the Twitch chat is. I don't have it showing on my stream layout, but if you're watching this on Twitch, then you have the option of showing chat, and it's really worth it because that's a great way to get to know each other within the community. But if you join our Discord server for Codex, then there's a section there which is various posts that GoReki's made to do specifically with streaming security, and it's really worth doing. You don't have to be a reader to join our Codex. You don't even have to be an avid listener to various ones of us reading either. You can actually just be somebody who wants to find out more about looking after the health of your Twitch community and system. So there you go and do it. I happen to know that one of our regulars who is often here isn't today because he's reading online at the moment too. Not one of our Codex guys, but Jonathan. Jonathan reads Tudor court documents, and court as in the royalty or their court of people around them, but also judicial court documents, letters between people, all this sort of stuff. He's reading all these old documents, and he's reading today. I think he's still reading. He was before I started. It's a public holiday today in New Zealand because I don't know if you knew about it, but Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen of England, the United Kingdom, and the British Commonwealth died reasonably recently. And so various countries within the Commonwealth have each chosen what day they are going to have as a public holiday, so that people who want to just sit and be quiet and reflect and appreciate the work that she did, or otherwise, can do so. And so we have it as a one-off public holiday. It's not going to be a recurring thing. It's just today for this year. And that's it. So because of that, he's not at work. And that means, oh, he is here. Hi, Jonathan. Good to see you. I thought you were reading today. Anyway, so Jonathan reads, and he's obviously not reading at the moment. If he's talking in my chat, Jonathan reads these Tudor court documents and letters and all sorts of things out loud on stream. Oh, you did, but you finished an hour ago. That's cool. Sorry, just trying to get it so I can type that in for you. And I was going to type it in anyway, but then I just discovered you were here, so that's wonderful. So if you haven't met him before, chat with him now and ask him more about the things he's doing and things like that. He's working out a game that is involved with actual history rather than just kind of pseudo made up fake history. Great to be able to support one another. I love it. So most welcome, Jonathan. It's good to have you here. So I'm really intrigued by this whole idea. Often when you're playing a game, you know that there are aspects of it that are based in a real place, a real time, and sometimes with real people, sort of real-ish. And then if you know your history and you're involved with the game, or you're watching someone else who's playing it, you're watching it and you're going, what the hang is that there for? It's like if you were to be watching a TV program that was set in the 1700s in England, and somebody whipped out their cell phone out of their pocket and decided they were going to call up mum and ask how things were going in the program. But the program itself is set totally in that time period. It's like, no, that doesn't work like that. They didn't have cell phones back then. So I think it's wonderful when people decide that they're going to pay attention to the reality of history and include that in whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's making visual media, TV programs, movies, or games. So go and give him a follow. Hang out with him when he reads, all that sort of stuff. Same goes with Go Ricky. He's not doing that. He's doing the security stuff. But go and give him a follow too. Support one another. It's really encouraging to have people who you see regularly online in various contexts for various reasons. Some of us have bumped into each other in other streamers' locations, and we just connect well, and so therefore we see each other around the place. That's just the way it is. Me and my family are going to be going down to Wellington hopefully sometime in the next month to go and see some of the family who are living down there. And oh, wonderful, you watched him making scrolls this weekend. Good on you, Go Ricky. That's good to hear. And so I'm hoping that there are one or two of the people I know through Twitch actually, and other contexts, that I will be able to catch up with. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And thank you so much, Go Ricky, for banning that user or bot. I do appreciate it. Oh, Jonathan saying, thanks so much for the alert, Go Ricky. I do sometimes bake. So there you go. Cooking streams as well. Awesome. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you want to actually get involved with watching on Twitch, where you can join in with the chat and I will read out your comments when they're appropriate and things like that, or we will ban you if you are being inappropriate. But if you want to come over and join us on Twitch, here is the link. There you go. It's the same username, jevvv. Don't forget, 3 V's. So there you go. And yeah, my readings are up for 2 weeks. It's not my choice, the numbers on this one. My readings are up for 2 weeks, and then they get taken down off Twitch, and once I have trimmed them so you just have the video window, they will get transferred over to YouTube and then released over there, usually about 2 weeks after I did the reading. Goriki says 3 V's, cheaper in bulk, I guess. Yeah, especially because not many people use them. I couldn't figure out a way to use 3 Q's though. So V's it is. Anyway, speaking of 3, I have to figure out, you guys can help me work it out. What can I do that would be a visual thing, like an emote or something that pops up on the screen or something like that, that references our 3 tips? What can I do for that that would actually be something that just plays with the idea of the fact that we have this ongoing thing of 3 tips? So here we go. If you're new here, I'm talking to you again. I have 3 tips. 1, drinks. 2, snacks. 3, comfort. So drinks, always have water handy, because your brain and your body, especially your voice if you're a reader or a singer or doing something where you are talking all the time, all need water to function well. So make sure you have water handy. And I'm waving at you my favourite water bottle. It's not the one I'm going to drink from because this one tips over too easily. Sorry about that. We could make it a free or cheap store animated GIF. Possibly. You need to talk to me about that, but not right here at the moment. But it's a great idea. And Jonathan, thank you for pondering. That would be great. Do you mean like using a points redemption sort of thing, and then it does something on screen as well as in the chat? That would be quite cool. So this is what I usually drink from. But in addition to your water, you are most welcome to have whatever it is your favourite drink is. So for me, today, I have coffee. It's stovetop coffee, because with a cold, my taste buds don't appreciate decent espresso based coffees with lots of milk in. So we have stovetop coffee, not as strong, but very pleasant. Normally I drink it black, but I've put a little bit of cream in it. Normally people avoid dairy when they've got a cold, but cream I have less of a dairy reaction to than milk, and I don't need as much of it when I have stovetop coffee, just to take the edge off the acid. So this is my favourite drink, coffee. So that's the other thing I've got. If you are not working, if you are allowed to, for whatever reason, if you are not driving, and if you want something that is a little bit harder than coffee, you go for it, as long as it's appropriate. I'm just going to read the little comments that we've got going on in chat. Maybe we need jevvv merch with a shirt that says "Remember your 3 tips." Yeah, that sounds like. I was actually just looking at what's available through Stream Elements to set up a merch store yesterday, and trying to figure out what I would put on them. Channel Point's redemption is different but possible, says Goriki. She needs a shuriken pencil with 3 tips. Shuriken pencil. I'm going to have to look that up. I really am. So please excuse me while I just go off on a rabbit trail. And if you're new here, this is one of the things that happens. I have ADHD. I'm also on the autism spectrum. So we go off on all these wonderful rabbit trails, and because of the autism, we dive deep into some various information that has absolutely no relevance for the story. But that's okay. It's all part of the fun. SHURIKEN, pencil. I'm getting references to John Wick. I'm not quite sure what that's about. Hi, Arinelle. Great to have you here. Arinelle's another one of our readers on Codex. I need to put the code first. Otherwise, it won't work. Oh, so shuriken's a throwing star. I actually missed the 3 tips looking at the store redemption options. Oh, okay. You're going to have to give me some more suggestions or information about this for it to actually make sense in my head, because my head is not really working very well. Yeah, I like the idea of I would guess that it's the lead of it has 3 points down the sides, you know, like a point, edges, 3 edges, so it has this shape. That would be quite cool, actually. Yeah. Anyway, obviously this throat lozenge is helping. So we've had tip 1. Let's get on to tip 2. Tip 2 is snacks. So what do you have today for snacks, people? Have you brought your snacks? I do have one of my New Zealand friends who she doesn't know it yet that I'm going down to Wellington, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to catch up with her as well. Muffin, good on you. Oh, okay, Goriki says, no, just a simple shuriken, and each arm has a tip, silly ninja pun. Oh, I know, I've seen something similar done with highlighter markers, and it's like a little star, and each of the points on it has the nib of the highlighter pen. So I can see exactly what you mean. But I don't know about anyone producing something like that would actually be usable as a store item. But it's a cool idea. One of my other friends who does artwork, she's not here at the moment, she said to me the other day when I was in her stream, she said to me, I keep forgetting to get my drinks and snacks before I start watching you. So at least it works, at least the information is sinking in, so that's really cool. Yeah, highlighter shuriken, that's good. It makes sense now, sorry about that. Yeah, I saw a picture of somebody who had sharpened some, you know, not the ones where you go click, 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 but the pencils that have like a 2mm thick lead in them, where you press it and that can slide down, and then they're a type of drawing pencil used by architects. And someone had taken some of those leads and they had sanded off the faces of it, so it had 3 sides to it. 4 sides to it. So that's why I was thinking initially you meant something like that. Anyway, so snacks. What do we have for snacks today? I'll just move my coffee out of the way. I'm getting badly distracted today, and I knew this was going to happen because my brain does not work particularly sharply when I have a cold. So there you go. I have a coffee account. If you can't scan that, I'll do it slowly for you. And if you do want, oh, that's nice and crisp. It's never done that before. If you do want to find my coffee account and give me a tip, the price of a cup of coffee, if you want. If you do want to and you can't scan that, then just look up coffee, ko-fi.com, I think it is. And then search for that and my username, jevvv, remember? And yeah, I haven't got it. Sorry, Goriki. I should have. I realised that yesterday, and it was one of the things I didn't write down to do. I'm waving the lid of my treat jar. So yeah, treat jar. So in here we have hundreds and thousands biscuits. We have still our few remaining lonely ginger nuts. We also have some plain old crackers, which I'm not really feeling today. And outside of the tip, I put them all in the tip jar because we've got ants and they get into everything. And this has a silicone seal around the edge, which helps to keep the ants out. So that's great. But I also have some plastic cheese, and I've got not a whole packet of it, I've got 3 slices. Oh. Anyway, we'll get there. So I've got cheese, I've got crackers, I've got biscuits, and Jonathan's got his muffin. I don't know if Goriki's brought anything to snack on, but we'll find out shortly, maybe. Right, so that's drinks, snacks, and comfort. Comfort. If you're going to listen to a story, you want to be able to sit and relax, or lie on the floor or on your bed and relax, or something like that. So what I have is handy for me a nice comfy cushion. Now, I usually don't use it while I'm actually reading to you. But if I am reading a book for myself, I will go and sit on the sofa that is in amongst all the storage items behind my green screen. And I have a nice comfy cushion on there. I lie down on that sofa, put my feet up, lean against the cushion, get comfortable, pull the nice warm blanket, snuggly blanket over the top, and just lie there and enjoy it while I'm reading with my snacks and my drinks. So whether or not you're actually listening to me reading to you, or if you're reading for yourself, get comfortable, make the most of it, enjoy it. The cat's over on the sofa at the moment, and I wish that I could show him to you. He's so cute and fluffy, very, very fluffy. Part of the setup when I get the stuff behind the green screen sorted and have that space set up as my proper office and reading space, I've got 2 bookshelves. Actually, no, I've got 3 bookshelves. 2 stepped bookshelves, which works well because I've got a ceiling here that's angled, and it's a very similar top angle. I have a whole lot of old bits and pieces which kind of relate to the different eras of what we read about. And they're just bits and pieces from my family. They're the sort of thing that other people see in museums. We just have them at home because we're that family. And I'm hoping to use my old webcam as a cat cam. So if the cat decides he is going to watch us, then, be there while I'm reading, which sometimes he does, then you'll be able to see him. Just like No Hands has a Whiskey camera. Whiskey is their dog. He's a husky, Whiskey the Husky, Whiskey of Wellington. And so he has this camera that's trained on the spot that the dog often lies in when he is streaming. And so if he is there, he'll turn that camera on. And I've been thinking, yeah, that would be a good way to do it. Or if the cat's not there, then find one of the little intriguing clusters of bits and pieces that I have that will be arranged somewhere, and have the camera just being intriguing with that. Thank you for adding that, Goriki. That's wonderful. Goriki's added a command for coffee. So you can send me a coffee for $3 New Zealand, which is about $1.70 US on average, at that link. Cool, thank you. You don't have to, but if you want to, there you go. Also, if you look at my About page, I don't have donations written there because in New Zealand, donations have a legal status. And to receive donations, you have to be a charitable organisation and you have to apply for that status. So it has to be for educational purposes, some religious purposes, some care within the community, and a whole lot of others, really strictly administered so people aren't ripping other people off. But that does mean if you donate something with those organisations, you get a tax receipt, and then at the end of the financial year you can claim back 1/3 of the value that you donated as a refund, because when you earn your money you have paid tax on it. And so the government is saying that because you are supporting things that we are not having to provide because these organisations are providing them, we are going to give you back the value of the tax that you paid when you earned it, the money that you gave, so that you can either put it back into it again or you can use it for something else that you want. So because of that, a lot of New Zealanders don't talk about donations. Thank you, Go Riki, that's wonderful, it worked. I know what I need to do. I need to put that in front of there, don't I? I'll swap those two round so that coffee comes in front of the jigsaw puzzle and then it gets seen better. Thank you. Wonderful. I do appreciate that. And the funding's come through from your gift of the... Yes, layers are very important. Hence me being behind the overlay. The funding has come through for the purchase of the cloud thermometer, barometer thingy gadget. So that will be getting ordered and come through, and I will be unpacking it on stream when that happens. So yeah, hail the glow cloud. The thing in itself doesn't actually have a light in it, but I will be putting a light behind it where appropriate so that it actually really shows up well. I think it's really cool. I'm hoping it's not quite as small as... It didn't say how big it was on the listing. None of the listings I've found for it in alternate places actually have any details for how big it is. But it's really, really cool, and I've always wanted one, so thank you very much for buying that for me. And I will show it to you when it comes. I'm so excited about that. And that one, if anyone's wondering what I'm talking about, so Go Riki, I've got a Throne account, which is on my overlay here. There's a little magenta sort of coloured little box that says throne.me/u/jevvz, see my wish list at sort of thing. And so what it is, Throne overseas in places like the States, parts of Europe, possibly Japan as well actually, has a system where people can create a wish list for things that they would like as streamers, and then whoever wants to can see the wish list, pay for something on it as a gift to them, and then Throne, through their systems and their associations with different retailers, then actually has that sent to that Twitch user, the streamer. But the retailers that are available to order from, that you can create your wish list from, aren't in New Zealand. And so to save on the hassles of ordering, getting it freighted from overseas, is it going to arrive or isn't it? Because sometimes things don't arrive if you order them from overseas to New Zealand. The most reliable is usually Amazon, but that's only if it's Amazon themselves who are supplying it. There are other people who supply through Amazon, and things can take months and months and months, or else never even turn up. And so somebody's put money into it and paid for the freight and everything, and you're stuck with it not arriving. So Throne have said, no, you can't use that in New Zealand. They did for quite a long time. And then they changed it at the beginning of this year. And they said, if you live in one of these countries, it's not available everywhere yet, New Zealand is one of them, we will set up a system which is similar, except that rather than us facilitating the purchase, you organise the purchase end of it, but your details are still kept anonymous. Like, I don't get to see your payment details, I don't get to see your real name or where you live, which normally on a credit card transaction that is shown. But I don't get to see any of that. And also, you don't get to say what my real name is, where I live, where it's being freighted to, or anything like that. So all of us are safe. But we can still exchange gifts. And so what Throne has done is they've set up a system where I can choose the things I want on my wish list from any retailer that I am prepared to deal with that does online purchases. And then people can choose what those things are, pay for them through the Throne wish list system. The funding gets transferred to me so I can then do the order within my own country. And yeah, you can choose what gets. Oh, that's great to know, Goriki. You can choose what gets sent to Jev in regards to your name identity. You get to fill in the information that comes through to me with the gift. So he put on there about the glowy cloud. And looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like. I could have been non if I desired. So yes, he could have filled in the information that gives his real life name if he wanted to. But he chose not to because I know him as Goriki or Come Insider. So I'm happy for it to come through as under that name because I know who that person is, as in, we know each other through reading and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's really cool that they've actually found a way to make it available for places like New Zealand where the freight would just kill it to try and get something sent here. I know that it's been years and years and years where I've had an Amazon account in New Zealand. In New Zealand, we don't have New Zealand Amazon. Australia does, and now we can order from there. But it used to be a bit ridiculous to actually order from there because there was only sort of like, it felt like you could get this many things out of this many things from Australia. And you couldn't get ebooks. What's with that? They're digital. Why can't I get ebooks from Australian Amazon? It's ridiculous. So we just use the international one, which is the American site. But you usually are very considered about making a decision to order from them because in the old days, yeah, I'm old. I remember when Amazon used to just be books. That's how old I am. In the old days, if you ordered something from Amazon, you'd think, oh, great, I love it. The price is exactly what I'm prepared to pay for it. And then you go through to the checkout, and it would cost 2 or 3 times the price because of the freight to New Zealand. So that's one of the reasons why Throne was not prepared to do the international side of shipping gift systems. So it's lovely that we've got this going on now. And I am still working on a possibility of something that is specific for New Zealand. That will be really cool, wouldn't it? With a retailer that is actually based in New Zealand. They also work in Australia now, but they started in New Zealand, and they sell all sorts of things. So Throne normally works with a range of preferred retailers, but also sellers, and also ones where people can say, can I get something through them? And there's enough people in those population areas where, yeah, they decide that they're going to do that. And it will be companies that they've never had problems with. If they keep having problems with them, they drop them off their list of somebody that they will let you order from, just because they don't need the hassle and you don't need the hassle. You don't need the disappointment. Anyway, so they deal with a range of different retailers if you are in a country where they deal directly. If you are somewhere like New Zealand, you get to choose. So what I was thinking, and I've mentioned this to Jonathan, and I've also mentioned it to another New Zealand streamer, and they both reckon it's a fabulous idea. There's a New Zealand online retailer where they sell a really wide range of stuff for the sort of place they are. Kind of like a really, 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 really mini version of Amazon in terms of lots of different departments. They also sell food items, not highly perishable ones like normal groceries, not pre-prepared meals like sushi and stuff like that, but shelf-stable stuff like sweets in bags, lollies, candy in bags, all sorts of things like that. Well done on the puzzle. Sheep on the hillside. Very good. So they sell drinks, snacks, as well as lights, desks, computer systems, some components, all sorts of things, so many different things. They would be ideal to be as a New Zealand based wish list system for New Zealand streamers. So I'm putting together information to approach them about it. I've casually asked them. They've said they don't have anything like that. So now I'm putting together the information to see if we can show them that it might actually help them with some additional sales and build their brand reputation. It's pretty good, but build their brand reputation amongst gamers and streamers in New Zealand, because we will be looking favourably on them as a supplier for us across the board. I think that's a cool idea, don't you? Anyway, so here we're going. Here we're going. Let's try that one again. I'll find you another puzzle and then we'll get on with reading. Am I loud enough? Yeah, I don't have all the sound prompts that Gariki has in his one that talk about the sound levels and stuff, because usually I don't have a lot of other sounds going on, like in-game or anything like that. But I'm just hoping that my microphone is loud enough for you all to hear me. But nobody has said, what was it you said? I can't hear you. I'm guessing that it was Aranel who was doing a lot of that puzzle, for the way you two are chatting together about it. I will find you another puzzle though. What are we going to be reading today? It's another part in the story. I know that much. We're still in the same book. We're still reading A Terrible Tomboy. Do you remember we met the young chap who had come over from the States, who was going to be living with his aunt, his great aunt, and his name was Archie. Okay, so I think this chapter is going to be all about him, because it says Archie. I'm just going to see if I can find something that will be suitable for it, because they won't have a picture from him. See what we can find. That looks intriguing. Yeah, let's do that one. I just have to get that sorted for you and give you the link. Now, how are you with the number of puzzle pieces on that? Whoever was doing the puzzle. And I'm not limiting that to Aranel. Would you like more puzzle pieces or less? As long as it's 108 plus. What's with the magic number of 108? Please tell me. I'm sure there is a reason for it. It says 108 at the moment. Do you want more than 108? It's got enough differentiation. Yeah, 108's a choice. I'm just wondering if 108 was for a particular reason. There's enough differentiation on the pieces that that's probably okay. The nearest I've got is 140, so we'll go with 140. There's enough variation on the pieces that I'm pretty sure that you'll still be able to do it okay. I'll copy the link and then put that into my command for you. And then we'll get on with the story. So you've got something to do while I'm reading. Okay, so the jigsaw puzzle is ready to go. You don't have to. You don't have to do the puzzle if you don't want to. But if you want to, then that's cool. So there you go. There's a jigsaw jigsaw puzzle. There's that word thing. Oh dear. Yeah, it's not just about my pronunciation, it's about me muddling up the words. And I'll get rid of all that extra guff on there too. There you go. Now we can carry on. That's good. Right. Drink. And then we'll carry on. So, coffee and water. I'm just going to grab another one of those throat lozenges. just in case, must remember to seal the bag. I didn't one time, and then I had ants everywhere, and I couldn't figure out where they were going to because the bag had worked its way down on my desk underneath some other things. And finally I found it, and there wasn't as much for them to eat by this stage, and there was this trail of ants going into the packets. I just picked the whole thing up and threw it all away. Wasn't worth it. Not worth trying to get them out of the bag. Anyway, sorry, brain. No, we'll get on with reading. That'll do. So we've done our 3 tips, and we'll get on with reading. So we're reading A Terrible Tomboy by a lady called Angela Brazel. I should actually have that up there, sorry. A lady called Angela Brazel, whose mother or grandmother or someone further back in the family had grown up in South America because their father was involved with shipping or something like that. And my brain has gone again. And I'm not sure if they're named after the fact that they were living in the country, or if it was just randomly that happened to be what their name was. I knew somebody whose surname was Weed, and they were a gardener. Makes you wonder if they chose to be a gardener because of their name. They hadn't changed it. That was their birth name, surname. And so it's... I think because the family had had connections with South America, they decided that they were going to make sure that people didn't assume that they were specifically from South America, so they pronounced it Brazel, like dazzle. Razzle dazzle, you know, with the double Z in it, but they pronounced it Brazel. And everything you read about this lady, that's one of the first points they make, is that her name is Angela Brazel, not Brazil. Anyway, so we'll get on with reading. We're reading A Terrible Tomboy by Angela Brazel. We are reading chapter 16, and it's called Archie. And by the way, if I do anything really ridiculous that you think is hilarious or you think is worth saving for posterity, then clip it. Go for it. I'm not going to be doing it just because my brain doesn't function that way at this stage. But if you want to, I don't mind. Give it a good, funny, a humorous title too. So, chapter 16, Archie. Here we go. God wants the boys, the merry boys, the noisy boys, the funny boys, the jolly boys with all their joys. God wants the boys. And for some reason, that's the header poem of this chapter. Probably because it's all about Archie. We'll carry on. You must not suppose that all this time Peggy's acquaintance with Archie Forster had been allowed to languish. Okay, fine. We'll accept that that hasn't languished, and we will keep reading. That young gentleman had introduced himself to the rest of the family and had made himself very much at home indeed at the Abbey. He kindly gave father the benefit of his experience of farming in Colorado, greatly to the latter's edification. He amused Lillian with his funny stories and was the source of open-mouthed wonder to Nancy, who thought his achievements only second to a conjurer she had once seen at Gorswin Fair. Bobby naturally regarded him with an admiration which bordered on worship, and trotted about at his heels like an affectionate poodle, while Peggy found herself living from Saturday to Saturday to continue the delightful series of projects which her enterprising friend lost no time in starting, and wondering sometimes how they had managed to exist before they knew him. There you go. By good rights, Master Archie ought to have been away at school, but a too active brain and a fast-growing body had brought about such a delicacy that the doctor forbade any severer study than a few hours' daily reading with the curate. That's the chap who works at the church. Actually, let's just check. Curate. We've had one of the other words that Goreki was wondering what it said. It always reminds him of something. Curate, an assistant rector or vicar. Rector was the other word, because I was talking about rectory. A vicar is the chap who's like a priest at a church in England, when it's an Anglican church, or one of the other ones that isn't Catholic. And the rector is someone who works at a slightly lower official level than what the vicar does, I think. But I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll carry on. So the curate is someone who helps and works for the church. So that's who he was spending a few hours daily reading with, and recommended as much fresh air and exercise as possible. Miss Forster, that's his great-aunt, was not sorry to find so plausible an excuse for keeping her pet nephew at the Willows, and the young man himself, yes, it's rattling. Is that loud enough for you? And the young man himself had no objections, being fuller than ever of ingenious schemes, only he had transferred the seat of his operations to the Abbey. Interesting. Probably because there was a lot more material available and a lot less that was going to cause problems around the house. I should just read instead of interpolating. Had transferred the seat of his operations to the Abbey, as offering a wider scope in the way of material and having the further advantage of a number of appreciative assistants. There you go. The only person who was not won over by Archie's friendly ways and frank American manners was Joe, the guy who works on the farm with father, who gloomily prophesied broken necks and kindred evils as the result of the children's association with the young master from foreign parts. But I fear there was a good deal of jealousy in this, for poor Joe had been a hero to the children in his modest way, and it was hard to find himself suddenly supplanted in their affections, especially by a rival with whom it was quite impossible to compete. I can understand that. Incited by an account of the tree dwellings in one of Miss Forster's books of travel, Archie determined to emulate them and construct such an elevated establishment for themselves. The trees in his aunt's garden were mostly ornamental shrubs, many of them clipped into quaint shapes, and could not be thought of for the purpose. Excuse me. But a tall elm growing on the borders of the Abbey stackyard seemed designed by nature for his requirements. He was a neat workman, and all his contrivances were perfectly steady and durable. Just a moment. There was something I needed to check. I know. I should say hi to Dad. Not my dad. Not a real dad is their username. So me being me and nicknaming people using part of their name. Dad. Hi, Dad. Sorry, I forgot to say hi to you earlier on. He was mentioning that did I have lozenges. He was a neat workman, and all his contrivances were perfectly steady and durable, for, as he said, when you're out west you have to be your own chore boy. Dad put an axe into my hand and taught me to chop kindling before I was out of petticoats, because in the old days little boys did not wear trousers. They wore what we would think of as a dress, but it wasn't. But it's referred to as in petticoats because it would have a skirt around the bottom. A skirtish bit around the bottom. A lot easier for looking after a baby, a toddler in some ways. And it could slow them down, because if you're trying to crawl and your knees keep landing on the skirt of it, you can't crawl away quite so fast. I think that might have been part of the reason why. And Dad taught me to chop kindling before I was out of petticoats, and when we're up in the Rockies shooting grizzlies, we built log cabins, and I can tell you there was no carpenter to fetch there nearer than 100 miles, so I guess I ought to know how to handle a saw and fix up a bit of lumber, which we would call a New Zealand timber. He first set to work to make a spiral staircase up the tree, which wound round and round the trunk like the little turret stairs in the tower. Go Ricky says, can you imagine if zombie movies were back then? Everyone would be tripping, not just ladies in heels. Absolutely, that would be hilarious. Has anyone seen Pride and Prejudice and zombies? I haven't, but I do know people who read the book and have watched the TV series movie or something and thought it was quite fun. It may have had something like that in it or not. I don't know, but it intrigues me. There's a picture. I'm trying to remember where the picture comes in, and I think it's here. So I'm going to give you... There you go. He's doing the stairs up the side of the tree trunk. He first set to work to make a spiral staircase up the tree, which wound round and round the trunk like the little turret stairs in the tower. Every step was carefully nailed on and properly supported, and the erection grew daily until he had reached 4 large boughs which branched out 20 feet above the level of the ground. Here he arranged a kind of platform, fixing pieces of wood across in the fashion of a raft, and making a firm railing all around the edge. That's smart. I like the idea. In the midst of this platform, a small hut gradually grew up, the walls of stout hazel stakes wattled across with branches and willow withes, while the roof was neatly thatched with reeds. The whole erection was so steady and well made that though father, as chief inspector, stamped vigorously about, he could not make it shake, and was able to pass it as perfectly safe and give his congratulations to the young architect, while even Joe grudgingly admitted that Master Forster hadn't made a half-bad job of it neither. There you go. If grown-up people found it satisfactory, you can imagine the delight of the children at this wonderful bird's nest. Their first thought each day on coming home from school was to rush off to see how Sky Cottage, as they had christened it, had progressed in their absence, and their grief was loud if anything hindered Archie from the prosecution of his labours on Saturdays, while they quite enlivened Lillian being able to run out any time she liked and take a peep at the operations. Yes, if he was still working along at his aunt's place, she wouldn't have been able to see what was going on. Naturally, Sky Cottage, like Rome, was not built in a day, and though Archie worked at it pretty constantly, it was November before the roof was on. That's the start of winter, or nearly the start of winter. I think that's actually late autumn. It was November before the roof was on, and he considered the building complete. The question of decorations was much discussed, for while father suggested hanging the walls with sacking, and Lillian voted for garlanding them with wild flowers, both ideas were rejected. The one is too prosaic, that means just sort of ordinary stuff, and yes, let's do the word thing. Prosaic, pertaining to or having the characteristics of prose. Context-wise, prosaic is usually used to mean ordinary, run-of-the-mill type things in a lot of ways. That definition disappoints me. There you go. Both ideas were rejected. The one is too prosaic and the other is not sufficiently durable. The wildflower swags. Definitely. Not one that would have lasted. And it was not until Peggy conceived the brilliant thought of lining their dwelling with moss that a satisfactory solution was arrived at. So off went the little party to the woods with a couple of sacks and a coil of rope to tear up the vivid green sheets which covered the rocks like carpets of velvet. A lot of farmers don't mind if you take the moss away, because if moss starts growing somewhere, usually it means that the rest of the grass is not going to grow well there. Even though we like the look of it, naturally, in its own setting. All the thickest and best is on the other side of the stream, beyond where we had our picnic in the summer, said Peggy. Remember the picnic where they went up the other hill and got bread, and then they were trying to go across the shortcut and toss it across the stream, and the bread fell in the water and they lost it, and Peggy fell in and had to be rescued. This is the area where they're going for the moss. All the thickest and the best is on the other side of the stream, beyond where we had our picnic in summer, said Peggy, leading the way with the proud air of a pioneer. "If only we can manage to cross, for the water is rather full today." Yeah, this time of year is a bit damp in England, and so therefore your stream water levels do rise. "Water is rather full today," she added with a lively remembrance of her former dipping. They found an unexpected help, however, for a recent storm had blown down a large oak, which now stretched itself very conveniently over the stream like a bridge, and by the aid of its branches it was quite easy to hop across and climb up the bank at the other side. The woods were thick here and damp, and the moss was of such superior quality that it fully justified the extra labour involved in fetching it. They pulled it up in pieces a yard or more square, and crammed it into the sacks, tying the mouths with rope, so as to be able to drag them along, for the moss was full of moisture, and the bags were dreadfully heavy. They were rather at a loss how to convey their spoils over the bridge. Bobby suggested floating them down the stream, but as Lillian pointed out, they would promptly sink to the bottom. So in the end, Archie hoisted a sack upon his back, and with Lillian to steady it behind, managed to stagger across in safety, coming back for the other when the first had been successfully landed. It was hard work bumping the sacks over the rough, uneven ground, but they got them home at last, safely conveyed to Sky Cottage, and emptied out onto the platform. They were all busily engaged within the hut, nailing sheets of moss over the wattled walls, when a curious squeaking noise began to attract Peggy's attention. "What's that?" she inquired, pausing with the hammer suspended in her hand. "A bird, most likely," replied Lillian, with her mouth full of nails. "No, it isn't," said Peggy, going out to investigate. "It seems to come from the moss at my feet. Archie, do come and look. Whatever can it be?" The noise grew louder and louder, so that it resembled the squealing of a kitten, and all four began to turn over the moss with eager fingers, till, with a cry, Archie drew out a small round ball of dried grass, about the size of Bobby's fist, from which issued such crescendo squeaks that there could be no mistake as to the locality of the sound. The little ball was so beautifully made and so neatly rounded that there was not the slightest aperture, that's opening, to be seen, and Archie turned it over and over in his hands in some perplexity. "What can it be?" cried Peggy. "Do open it," piped Bobby. "Oh, do be careful. Suppose it's a viper," shrieked Lillian. "You goose, vipers don't squeal." "At any rate," said Archie, whose friendship had reached a degree of intimacy that was distinctly brotherly, hence him calling her a goose, and gingerly pulled asunder the neatly woven grass. He disclosed to view a plump yellow dormouse, whom they had evidently disturbed in his winter quarters. He'd gone and built himself a nest somewhere nice and safe to hibernate for the winter. This is November, this is the start of winter, and they've gone and pulled his house apart. Poor little dormouse. Let's find a picture of a dormouse. No, not that page. They are quite cute. The dormouse is one of the characters in Alice in Wonderland, when they're having tea at the Mad Hatter's tea party. The dormouse kept on going to sleep, remember? Let's see if I can find a dormouse nest. Okay, this one will do. Save that. Save image as. And find the right folder as usual, because I've been using my computer since then. Specific books. Angela Brazel. A Terrible Tomboy. So that's the right place to save it, because then I will find it again. Hopefully. This one here, we shall find it. Nearly there. There he is. You can see why they referred to him as, him being the little one, a plump yellow dormouse. When I get the picture ready for you so you can see it. Right, there we go. There. See, he's quite yellow, isn't he? Now, that is a dormouse nest, but it's an opened out one. Normally they are closed in, and he makes a little wee tunnel hole into it as he's building it, and then he goes in and he pulls the opening closed around him so that he can sleep in there undisturbed. He's all hunched up, staying all nice and warm for the winter. All those layers of grass, dried grass, would help him to stay well insulated, wouldn't they? We'll carry on. So that's dormouse. Just in case you don't have them where you live. We don't have them here in New Zealand, but I've grown up hearing about them in kids' books. Gingerly pulling asunder the neatly woven grass, he disclosed to view a plump yellow dormouse, whom they had evidently disturbed in his winter quarters. The little fellow lay flat on his back in the midst of his snug little nest. He had not taken the trouble to open his eyes, but his paws were crossed, and his pink mouth was open, giving vent to loud disapproval of the bumpings to which he had been rudely subjected, unawares. Yes, that would have been quite confusing for him. Totally understand. Poor little mouse. "My, ain't he cunning?" said Archie, stroking the soft fur with his finger while the others crowded round to look. "And so clean, too. He looks as if you'd just loaned him new from the store, and he's as fat as butter. He's been feeding up for this, I reckon. What shall I do with him?" "Oh, can't we keep him for a pet?" implored Peggy, with an eye on the ever-creasing menagerie. "We could get nuts and acorns and things for him, and I've no doubt he would eat corn, too." "I guess he'll want to sleep now right away, till spring, like our grizzlies do in the fall." "Let's wrap him up again," said Lillian. "I'm sure he'll catch cold, poor dear, and we'll put him in a snug corner of the orchard where we can look at him now and then, and in the spring perhaps he'll wake up." As this seemed the most humane suggestion, Master Dormouse was tucked up in bed once more, and still protesting, was carried to a sunny bank under an apple tree, and stowed away under a protecting clump of leaves, where his plaintive voice gradually subsided. And he settled down for 5 months of oblivion, to ignore the winter frosts and storms until the April sunshine should tempt him out of his lair. The moss lining to Sky Cottage was a great success. Archie arranged willow withes in a neat pattern over it to keep it from falling down, and everyone agreed that it looked charming. It's not going to stay green, though. It'll dry out and die unless they water the walls. If you've ever built anything and covered it with moss, you'll know what I'm talking about. Well done on the puzzle. Well done. Do you want to drag that puzzle picture up so we can see what it is? Are you able to? Am I able to? Treehouse near Machynlleth, Wales. And I have no idea if that's... There you go. That's what it looks like. It's an intriguing one. Looks like it's got moss or something over the roof over there. Very intriguing. I'll find you another puzzle and then we shall carry on with the story, because we've still got a little way to go. Would help if I spelled correctly, wouldn't it? No. Something I thought they would have a lot more of. We'll use this one. It's not the same. Go on, see if you can guess what I'm going to give you for the picture. that one. Let's give it 140 and see how you cope. Because some of the pieces are looking quite similar if you're the sort of person who, like me, does a puzzle by looking at colours and putting them together. Goriki has told me that no, what you do is you look at the edges and you look for the right sort of edge shapes as well as the colours. Which makes a lot of sense. I just never thought of it that way before, that's all. I like that idea. I just haven't done any puzzles since then. Right, that should be ready to go. I have saved that, and you should be able to do your puzzle now whenever you're ready. Well done, Aranel. Very good. I'll just get that one out of my way so it's not distracting me. Right, we're carrying on. The moss lining to Sky Cottage was a great success. Archie arranged willow withes in a neat pattern over it. Withs, W-I-T-H-S. Not a word I've heard used. I've heard in buildings where they're properly made, laths, which are long, thin this one way it's this, and then they're very thin the other way. They're strips of timber that are fastened on that they put plaster over for a wall in a normal house, in an old house. It's the equivalent of that, but they're using thin strips of willow, fastening it to the wall to hold the moss in place. But I've never heard them called withs before. Maybe it's related to the word withy. Don't know, you can look that one up if you want. Oh, that was the bonus tip, which I forgot to give you. Bonus tip. Pen and paper. So you can write things down to find out about things that you are interested in that we cover in our reading. I'll get my buzzy sleeves out of the way. They're a bit for the eyes with all those stripes. Archie arranged willow withes in a neat pattern over it, got that bit, to keep it from falling down, and everyone agreed that it looked charming. Furnishing it was the next consideration, and the attics and lumber room at the Abbey were ransacked for any treasures they might afford. Now, the lumber room is the junk room, the place where anything that's broken or no longer in use gets put, because it's usually too good to throw away. You might need it for repairing something, or it might just be that it goes there for storage for now because it's not in day-to-day use. Such as travel trunks, things like that, they get stored in the lumber room. English use of the word lumber, not the American use. And the attics and oh dear, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take this phone call, and hopefully I'll be able to come back to this in a moment. And I'm back. There you go. Did you miss me? Isn't that what you meant to say? Yeah, no, that was just my dad just wanting to get some help with something technical on his remote control. Not such an unusual thing these days. Considering he's in his 80s, I think that's okay. And he's forgotten what day of the week it is, and that usually I do busy things on the computer on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Yeah, there's another one of my threes. I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 3 p.m. New Zealand time. Whether it's summer or with daylight savings or just normal time, doesn't really matter. It's 3 p.m, whatever's on the clock normally. Anyway, we'll carry on with reading. I think that's it. I don't think there was anything else I needed to sort out for you while I was off away from the microphone. Furnishing it was the next consideration, and the attics and lumber room at the Abbey were ransacked for any treasures they might afford. A few broken chairs and a rickety gate-legged table. So a gate-legged table is where you have a table that, to make it more stable and usually to make it so you've got another bit to make it bigger, you'll often have a piece of the tabletop will lift upwards like a flap, and it will have an extra set of legs that are hinged at one end that swing around and hold up that bit that hangs out, and that's referred to as gate-legged, so because it's hinged and it's like a gate underneath that flap. In case you needed to know, you don't know when you're going to need to know these things. Anyway, and a rickety gate-legged table was soon mended by Archie's clever fingers. Lillian hunted out an old piece of carpet and a tablecloth, and the place looked so comfortable that the children, fired by Archie's accounts of the log cabins in the Rocky Mountains, longed to put in a cooking stove and emigrate there all together. They decided to have a garden, have quite a garden on the platform next spring, and to grow seeds in pots and persuade nasturtiums and canary creepers to climb up the walls, and they made a beginning by hauling up a box of soil and planting some ivy, which they hoped in time would cover the whole roof. If it's ivy, it probably will. Canary creeper. What is canary creeper? Let's find out. It has bright, bright yellow flowers, which is why it's called canary creeper, I suppose. According to this, it's actually in the nasturtium family, which is why it spreads, puts out long, long runners. But it's got a different shape leaf. So normal nasturtium has a fairly round leaf with the stem coming up to just offset from the middle. And the veins spreading out from that, whereas the canary creepers I'm seeing in the pictures have, instead of it being round, it's got indentations around quite a long way in from the edge, so it's like it's fingers, even though it's actually just one leaf each time. All around that centre point, like you have a centre point with normal nasturtiums. Oh, yeah, sorry, Jonathan, I'll get you that picture. I don't know why I didn't. Jonathan has botany as part of his background. And I went and clicked the wrong thing then, didn't I? Save image as, yes. Yeah, I was quite astonished. It's not a familiar look for me, the canary creeper. I have heard of them before, but I hadn't realised that they were part of that family of flowers. But looking at them now, I can see that yes, it would be. No, not that one. That's cowslip. Canary creeper. Open. Ooh, that's a bit small. Make it a bit bigger. And there you go. I'll try and make it a little bit bigger so you can see. This looks like it's growing from a hanging basket in the picture. And I'll make it big enough so you can actually see. So if you look at some of these leaves up here, you can see that they've got that ever so slight saucer shape that nasturtium flower leaves have with the centre stem, but it's got the fingering around the edge, goes around and in, and yet that centre is actually sort of like offset, like it starts there and it works its way around instead of a truly central rounded basis to it. So many things in brassicales, that family, that are interesting. They're in their own family. Oh yeah, that would make sense. Totally makes sense. So yeah, that's Oh, what did I just try and move? Let's not do that. Yeah, really cool. Very interesting. It's probably something I need to keep an eye out for. Hi, Q, great to have you here. I haven't finished yet, so well done. We're just looking at a picture of one of the plants that the children were going to see if they can grow in the treehouse that they've been building. And we've just discovered it's related to nasturtiums, which are something that we're very familiar with. Some of us, some generations are very familiar with. So I'm just going to turn that picture off in a moment. That particular family is basal or ancestral in the group Brassicales, i.e. close to the original Brassicaceae, or however you say it. And brassica, if it's brassica, then it's related to the cabbage family. So that sounds like it's got the same sort of root to the meaning of it. And I'm pretty sure Jonathan's going to say something about that in a moment. So before I get on with that, I'm glad you made it too. The jigsaw puzzle is going well. If you want to get involved with that, that's cool. You don't need to, but if you want to, that's cool. It's as far away from brassica as you can get in the group, but ancestral-ish. Yeah, it's like a multiply removed, distant cousin with extras type thing. Yeah, think a great-great-great-grandparent type stuff. Yeah, I come from a family that knows those sort of connections really, really well. So, yeah, when I talk about cousins, I'm just talking about the whole, way back and all that sort of stuff. Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, and because I grew up with that sort of thing, you forget the things that you know that are part of your normal background and your normal life and your family, because your family is for you normal. And it's not until you actually have anything to do with other people who have a different life experience that you realize just how you take these things for granted, and others it's just like, what? Like my husband, he's the first person in his family to be born in New Zealand. There were 4 boys. He is the third of the 4 boys, but he was the first one to be born in New Zealand. When they came to New Zealand, it was his mother and his father and his 2 older brothers. She had him once they got here, then she had his youngest brother, and there was nobody else they were related to in New Zealand that they knew of. Many, many, many years later, somebody discovered that actually they had some distant cousins that lived near Wellington. Now, for me, that is just unheard of. We used to joke about how my dad was related to all of Pukekohe and half of Auckland. It's not a big family, like every generation doesn't have a lot of children, but we hang around. So therefore, you get to know each other fairly well. So I knew my third cousins. That means that my third cousins, my dad and his second cousins, my grandparents and their first cousins, which means my great-grandparents, they were siblings. That's how it goes. So I knew my third cousins better than most people I was at school with knew their first cousins, the children of their parents and their parents' siblings. It was just normal. They lived just up the road, we would go on the same bus to school together, all that sort of stuff. That was just normal for us. And I thought that was normal, and then I discovered, I've got a whole bunch of people who have no idea what cousins means or what second cousins once removed or anything like that mean. It's like, doesn't everybody know that? Apparently not. Anyway, enough of that. We've had another wonderful little rabbit trail, haven't we? That's another thing we need to do something for, either an emoji or some sort of pop-up graphic thing that falls down all over the place or something like that, or even for merch, rabbit trails of some sort. Jonathan says, indeed, my mum has 44 first cousins and she doesn't realise that isn't normal. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like her family have a lot more siblings in each generation to get that many. We don't have quite that many at the first cousins level, definitely not. But yeah, when you're used to that with your family, you don't realise how much other people don't have that going on in their own families. Right. Where do we get to? Canary creepers, that's what it was. To grow seeds in pots and persuade nasturtiums and canary creepers to climb up the walls. Jonathan Goriki is now saying, one of these days I think I'll intentionally do a rambling stream and then see if it leads to reading or gaming as a tangent. That's a great idea. Go on. See how you go. Have in hand the options that you can do, planning to do both, but not specifically having to, and just see how it goes. Or start with one and end up at the other, or go backwards and forwards, whatever. It's lots of fun. And people keep turning up, so it must be reasonable fun on the receiving end too. Excuse me. Right. So the nasturtiums and the canary creepers to climb up the walls, and they made a beginning by hauling up a box of soil and planting some ivy, which they hoped in time would cover the whole roof. As is the way of ivy. Peggy and Bobby would have been quite contented to go on adding a nail here or there, or a shelf there, and making further improvements. But Archie, now that the chief work was over, found his interest cooling. Absolutely. Archie's got to have a project. His interest cooling, and having got hold of a book on balloons and airships, proposed no less daring a scheme than that he should construct a flying machine and start it from the platform. Father, however, getting to hear of the project, forbade it so emphatically that the disgusted aeronaut was obliged to give way and consoled himself by constructing a fire balloon out of bright strips of pink and green tissue paper, which, ignited by methylated spirits, was to be set off with great effect on Peggy's birthday. As some slight amends for his disappointment, Lillian proposed that they should have a grand housewarming at Sky Cottage on Saturday afternoon and invite Father to tea in the sanctum. The rest, giving a hearty and vigorous approval, she set to work to bake cakes in honour of the occasion, preserving such a halo of mystery around her cookery that the others were consumed with curiosity and felt ready for any surprises. I'm guessing her skills have improved. There were a great many preparations to be made when the eventful afternoon arrived. The hut had to be swept and dusted, late flowers to be gleaned from the garden, to decorate the tea table, cups and saucers packed up and conveyed in baskets, together with the little tin kettle and the methylated spirit lamp, as they could scarcely light a fire on the platform like they did for picnic teas in the woods. The whole thing would burn. Archie hung up a Japanese lantern in the doorway and fixed a Union Jack on one side and the Star-Spangled Banner of the United States on the other, and Peggy found enough Michaelmas daisies and white asters to put a wreath all round the railing of the veranda, which rather suggested harvest decorations, but looked very festive all the same. Michaelmas daisies and asters are daisy-style flowers, and okay, not everybody's going to know them, so let's have a look. They probably are different to each other, but I'm not quite sure how. Michaelmas daisies. Oh, yeah, I've got to save it first, don't I? I forgot to save it. I was trying to open it. Right. Let's cancel that and open it again. There they are. These are Michaelmas daisies. They're from a seed catalogue in New Zealand. A company that does postal order flower seeds. And I can't remember exactly how big they are. I think the flowers on them are about this big, but I'm not sure. I think it would also depend on the variety. So there's a selection of them, Michaelmas daisies. So they're not like little tiny lawn daisies. They're bigger than that. Let's look up what asters are to compare. So all bright, cheery sort of flowers. I feel like I'm looking at exactly the same pictures. see. So that's Michaelmas Daisy. And this one is... There it is. This one gives you a bit more of an idea of the size of the flowers because of what else is in the photo. And you'll see it in a moment. Someone's got them in their hand. So they kind of look a little bit like the very, very fluffy dahlia style flowers, but with much finer petals to me, looking at the picture. I don't know if they actually are. But obviously they were a popular sort of a flower that gave you flowers at a time of year when there were less flowers in the garden. Late autumn, early winter, there's not really a lot of flowers around. Yep, go for it, Jonathan. We'll probably still be here unless you have to get doing for a while. So Peggy found enough Michaelmas daisies and white asters, so not the purple ones, to put a wreath all round the railing of the veranda, which rather suggested harvest decorations, but looked very festive all the same. So the time of year is when you'd have harvest decorations up. Like at church, they would have harvest festival, which is where you have pumpkins and wheat and little stooks, which is like the bundles that'll stand up on their own, marrows, various vegetables and fruits and things that you've been picking, and it was a way of celebrating, we've had the harvest and it's been good and we're appreciating it together. So that's why it's reminding them of harvest decorations, because when you have a long, grey, dull, cold, wet, seemingly interminable type long winter every year, you want to kind of do some things to brighten it up a little before you get stuck in the depths of it. So you do things like you put up decorations. Because Halloween, the way the North Americans celebrate Halloween, didn't used to be a done thing in England. So you don't have bright pumpkins that are carved into shapes on your porches and things like that to just sort of brighten it up with all that orange and amongst all the grey of the weather. So it's part of why you do certain things at a certain time of year. They had brought a clean tablecloth from the kitchen drawer and set the table quite artistically with a jam pot full of flowers in the centre and little plates full of cakes grouped round it. Lillian put out a very tempting-looking selection of rock buns and ginger nuts. Rock buns. We would now call them rock cakes, and they're kind of like if you are used to making English or New Zealand scones, they're like that, but not as tight a mixture. It's softer and wetter than that. Very, very simple. And then they often have sultanas or raisins or dried fruit through them just to add texture. But they're called rock cakes because they look a little bit like a rock, as in just a blob that's a little bit knobbly and lumpy, because you splot the spoonfuls of it onto the baking tray. They're not in little paper cases. They're not nicely round. They're not rolled out and cut or anything like that. You just put spoonfuls onto the tray, and so they're called rock cakes, or in this case rock buns. And ginger nuts. We know about ginger nuts. Do you need me to show you? I'm not getting a picture. I don't need a picture for ginger nuts. We know what ginger nuts are. Entertain you with some more sounds. We could have a guess the sound thing one day, couldn't we? Yes, these are New Zealand ginger nuts. They're very, very hard, and so what she would have been making is something that was similar to that, quite spicy with the amount of ginger in them, but also quite hard, so they're cooked so they become quite dry. And they were probably something that you made and then had in tins for a while so that they were available when you really wanted something simple to snack on, I would guess. That makes sense. I'm not going to leave that there because otherwise I'll get ants all over the table like I did last time. So that's also the snack in Bartleby the Scrivener, most likely. Yes. Yeah, are you talking rock cakes or ginger nuts? Because I didn't read it. You remember I didn't do that book club. We had book club on Sunday, that's yesterday, and it was really, really cool. I haven't done it before, being as part of the stream. So there were 5 of us. We had Jonathan, it was a group of people associated with Codex, and it was organised by Codex. So Jonathan was hosting it. Normally we would have more of us actually streaming it, and I would have let you know, but I talked about it beforehand, but I didn't actually send you an announcement. So ginger nuts were a huge snack, but I'm not sure it was an actual nut or that cookie. No, if it's Bartleby the Scrivener, which is English, it will be something like this. They're a hard biscuit, a hard cookie. North American, I'm speaking North American now. It's a hard cookie. They're not soft and chewy usually. They're pretty hard. Just to deafen you. That was just me tapping on my microphone with it. Yeah, quite hard. I'll snap one. Unlike the other biscuits that I broke when I was eating when we were doing our stream the other day, these ones you've got to put a little bit more effort into it. Some people don't eat them unless they've dunked them into a hot drink because they're too hard for their teeth. Others of us, because you don't want to do it with these teeth, others of us will put them down the side of their mouth and crunch them with the big crushing teeth because we've figured out that works. And they're quite yummy. Definitely very gingery, and they would probably store fairly well. So I wouldn't be surprised if in Bartleby the Scrivener it was ginger nuts. They're I suppose a very traditional thing, actually, in England. English background, ginger nuts. You can these days get something called ginger snaps, and it's the same sort of idea but very, very thin, and so they break very easily, and those are really yummy. You can get some Swedish one. I got some Swedish spice biscuits, mainly ginger ones, but there were some other ones as well, and they're really thin, and they're kind of cut out in a stylised flower shape, and every now and then they're available in New Zealand at the supermarket, and so I'll get them. They're not a big packet. I'll just get them and hide them away and snack on them when I remember I've got them. Nobody else gets any. Shh, don't tell anyone. Hide your biscuits. Right, carrying on. Lillian put out a very tempting looking selection of rock buns and ginger nuts, and Archie produced a tin of real Scottish shortbread. Now I am doing some correction there. It says Scotch. I have Scottish people in my family background, very strongly in my family background, and it's not Scotch. Scotch is a drink or a sausage meat covered boiled egg. That's a Scotch egg. The English wrote of them as Scotch, the people. I'm trying to think of what would be an equivalent. If someone, instead of calling someone from the USA American, called them American instead of American, because it's not actually who we are. So the Scottish, they're either Scots or Scottish, not Scotch. Scotch is a type of tape, Scotch tape, you know, or Scotch eggs, or the drink. Scotch is a type of whiskey. So there you go. If you ever want to have them on your side, don't call them Scotch, call them Scottish, the people. Okay, so I'm correcting this as I read. Archie produced a tin of real Scottish shortbread and some macaroons. Macaroons are a type of biscuit that have a lot of coconut in them, dried coconut. A contribution from his aunt. So with bread and butter and a pot of newly made blackberry jam, there was quite a noble display, but Lillian had kept her surprise in the background, and it was only when all was ready that she opened a basket and proudly drew out her masterpiece, a substantial-looking cake with a cut paper frill and white icing on the top, on which, in pink sugary letters, were inscribed the words, "Success to Skye Cottage." Certainly some of the capitals were a little staggery, and the Y had strayed into the pink border around the edge. That's in Skye, it had sort of got a bit long. But it was felt to be a triumph of culinary art all the same, and gave quite a grace to the table. At the last minute, Father had been obliged to send his regrets and apologies, for the veterinary surgeon had arrived to doctor a sick horse, and he could not possibly leave the stables, so the tea party must perforce begin without him, for the days were growing short now, and there was no time to spare. It was a merry, not to say boisterous, party, for Archie was in one of his funniest moods and told tall Yankee stories till the children nearly rolled off their seats with laughter, and Lillian went on pouring into her overflowing cup till the tray was swimming with tea. She wasn't paying attention, was she? The cake looked such a work of art that, as Mrs Squeers remarked of her Yorkshire pie, it seemed quite a pity to cut into it. But seizing the knife, Peggy boldly severed the S and the U for success, S and U, and with Aunt Helen's wedding festivities fresh in their memories, the company drank the health of Skye Cottage in tea, clinking their cups together over the table in imitation of old Squire Henley. They were in the very midst of one of Archie's most comical adventures when a shout was heard underneath the tree, and going out onto the veranda they beheld Nancy struggling timorously up the staircase. Nancy's the housemaid, the housekeeper. Well, I think Nancy's the one who does the general dog's body type housework as opposed to the cook. Her evident anxiety to make some communication overcoming her natural abhorrence of such an airy structure. "Oh, Miss Lillian," she panted, "if there isn't Mrs Davenport just arrived in her pony shay, and she's put it up in the yard and says she's sure you'll give her a cup of tea, so I left her sitting in the drawing room looking at the photo albums and rushed off to tell you she's here." Is Mrs Davenport the one who likes telling people how they should be doing things? I think she is. "What a nuisance," groaned Lillian, who was not generally inhospitably disposed. "Run back, Nancy, quick, and be getting some tea ready, and I'll follow you. I must bring these cakes. They're the only ones we have." Oh, that's a shame. She bundled the remains of the feast into her basket and had just descended the stairs, escorted by the sympathising Peggy and Bobby, when round the corner of the large haystack suddenly loomed the tall figure and black alpaca skirts of Mrs Davenport. Alpaca wool or fur is spun and then made into fabric, and so it was one of the ones that was used at the time. There you go. I've got a scarf, a shawl that's made out of alpaca, and it's very warm and lovely. Who, finding herself left longer in the drawing room than she appreciated, had sallied forth in search of her hostess. She stopped short now, quite thunderstruck at the vision before her. Yes, she's not used to being kept waiting. "What do I see?" she exclaimed. "What mad folly is this? Really, Lillian, I am astonished that you countenance such wild proceedings. Peggy, I knew was a sad tomboy, but I thought you, at least, were the sensible member of the family, and would try to train the younger ones into more civilised habits. I had heard from Miss Forster that very indulged and unmanageable nephew of hers had been making some sort of a place in a tree at the Abbey. But I never imagined so much as this. Sheer waste of good time, I call it, and a boy who can expend so much energy as to raise such a construction must be only shamming ill health, and would be far better packed off to school. I shall tell his aunt so the next time I see her, and I don't care who hears me," she added, catching sight of a grinning face on the veranda. For Archie had stolen out to see the fun, and overflowed in such gurgles of delight at the sally that Lillian trembled for the result. "You had better come down, Archibald," said Mrs Davenport in her most majestic voice. I think I need to do that voice again, because I was reading it as the wrong person, wasn't I? Sorry about that. And thank you for doing that, Ban Goriki. That's good. "You'd better come down, Archibald," said Mrs Davenport in her most majestic voice, which probably really isn't. She thinks it is. But Master Archie evidently thought discretion the better part of valour, for he dived through the doorway like a rabbit into a burrow, his overwrought feelings so far overcoming him that he exploded in a tremendous cock crow as he sought the friendly shelter of Skye Cottage. He's trying not to explode with laughter, and it still comes out. An embarrassing silence followed, broken at last by Lillian, who asked Mrs Davenport if she would not like to return to the house. Peggy and Bobby tried, as Archie expressed it, to do a slope, as in slide off out of the way. Sloping off. But in vain, for saying she had not seen them for a long time and should like to talk to them, their unwelcome visitor took the dismayed pair into custody like a female policeman and whirled them sternly along before her. Oh dear. It really was too bad that Mrs Davenport, instead of coming upon a Wednesday or a Thursday when all would have been neatness and order, and Nancy in her best black dress and muslin apron, should have chosen this particular Saturday afternoon, when there was no fire in the drawing-room, a pile of mending on the dining-room table, and all the family in somewhat dishevelled array. Well, yeah, it's Saturday. But she always does manage to catch us somehow, lamented Lillian afterwards. She calls it taking us just as we are, but then we aren't generally in the middle of a muddle like this, so it doesn't seem quite fair. She ought to come sometimes when we are tidy, to see both sides. Yeah, poor Lillian, she's doing all this really, really hard work and getting in trouble for it. Once established in an armchair by the dining-room fire, Mrs Davenport took off her gloves, untied her veil, hat, veil, just to keep the hair in order and to keep the bugs off the face if you've come along the road, riding or in the carriage or something like that. And enjoyed herself thoroughly. She catechised Lillian freely about her housekeeping arrangements, hoped Nancy did her duty and did not neglect to sweep out corners, told Bobby his irrepressible curls looked girlish and his hair ought to be cropped close every week, plied Peggy with embarrassing questions on the subject of fine needlework and stocking darning, and drank 4 cups of tea in the meantime, with the air of one conferring a favour thereby. I hear you see a good deal of Miss Forster's nephew, she remarked, her eye wandering around the room and taking in the pile of untidy music scattered about on the window seat, and father's dirty shooting boots under the sofa. I suppose we do, said Lillian meekly, wondering privately where Archie was and if he would go home without saying goodbye. Not a very suitable companion for any of you, I consider. Young people in America are brought up to have far too good an opinion of themselves, and this lad is no exception. I was not at all pleased with his manner when I met him at the Willows. She frowned slightly at the remembrance. For Archie's cool and elaborately courteous treatment of her criticisms on that occasion had completely baffled her. But luckily the growing dusk reminded Mrs Davenport that the country lanes were unpleasant to drive along in the dark, so drawing them on, she routed her groom, a small depressed-looking boy, out of the harness room, where he was retailing his grievances to the awe-stricken Joe, and tucked her black skirts safely into her pony carriage, assuring the children that it should not be long before she looked them up again, as she had promised their aunt to keep an eye on them after they were left alone. Oh dear, I don't know that Aunt Helen actually wanted her to do that. Halfway down the drive she met Mr Vaughan and stopped to give him some good advice as to the general upbringing of his family, even suggesting that Peggy, for a yearly consideration, should be transplanted to Pendlefield Rectory to share the studies and maternal care of the 5 little Davenports, a proposal which he declined with a haste that was perhaps more emphatic than polite. Thank you, father. Good man. With a sigh of relief, Lillian had adjourned with Peggy to the kitchen to help Nancy wash up, when the back door was pushed softly ajar. "Is she gone?" said a cautious voice, and a fluffy red head appeared in the opening, only followed by the rest of Archie's body on the full assurance of the entire retreat of the enemy. "I thought I should have died with laughing," announced that youth, sitting down easily among the crockery on the table. "My stars, isn't she a terror? I shall have to keep clear of the Willows every afternoon next week, for I know she'll make a point of calling and telling poor Aunt Mary her candid opinion of me. What a mercy we live at Gorswin instead of Pendlefield. Think of exchanging the rector for her and little crushed Mr Davenport. If she came to live any nearer than 4 miles away, I declare I'd pack my boxes and beg to be sent off to school. There. So there. Oh, apart from Mrs Davenport, we haven't had any other disasters this chapter, so that's been pretty good. And I'm not going to start the next one. I'm sorry, that was the end of the chapter. I'm not going to start the next one because it's another long one. And it's now 5 to 5 in the afternoon in New Zealand, and I will be having to cook dinner soon. So there you go. But I will let you continue with that puzzle, and we can have a wee chat about what other things I need to get sorted for my stream. I don't know if you've noticed it, I've got a what they call a hype cup over here, which is basically, it collects little icons every time somebody follows or cheers bits or subscribes or anything like that. It puts another little icon into it, and then eventually we can empty it out or whatever like that. But it looks cute. And I figured that was a good one because I talk about reading as being magic, and it's like it's a little magical sack with the little sparkles coming up from it. So, yep, you're most welcome. So glad to have you here. I really love you guys being involved and chatting with me, keeping me company, asking questions about things, getting me to show you pictures, putting up with the fact that I keep interrupting myself and saying things strangely. We made it through. My voice survived. It's feeling a little bit rough. But those 2 throat lozenges certainly helped. I wouldn't have been able to read it without those. So I'm glad I had those. And if you don't have any, make sure you go and get yourself some and put them in your bathroom supplies storage space. Got some wholesome dancing to raid at digital dances. That sounds wonderful. So, as Goriki has just said, how about we go and raid someone? But I will actually let that puzzle finish first, and then we'll go and raid them. So that's good to know that that digital dances are still on, and we can go and raid them. They do fun dance stuff. They practice dance routines, and it's really fun. I don't know how else to describe it. It's lots of fun watching them, and it can be a bit noisy and all that sort of thing, but lots of fun. So that's what we're going to do next, but I am not quite going to go just yet because I want to let you finish the puzzle. Just because, why not? That would be fun. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. You're most welcome, Mist. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your visit. And it's lovely to actually have various ones here, just being part of it, even if people don't specifically say that they're here. It's just, I mean, when I first started out, I didn't ever have anyone here when I was reading live, but I would just chat away as if there was somebody there anyway. And then I had a friend over in not the States, he's American, a friend in Australia who does a lot of online stuff on YouTube, and he does one-man band stuff as gigging, like doing band stuff on his own. For music events, but he also does, he's an entertainer on cruise ships in Australia, and he looked at some of the videos, and I mean, yes, I'm very disjointed and I have long rambly introductions, which is just part of the way we do things around here, but he was astonished at, considering I have no background like he does with doing things in public, he was astonished with how well I managed to just sort of chat, keep going, talk about various things that may or may not be interesting, and just connect with people along the way. But it's just lots of fun. I mean, I just like being here with you guys, and even if you're not here, I talk as if you are here, because I know that some of you will come along and listen to it or watch it later on, and it feels more connected, and I love it. I love the sense of connection. Thank you, Jonathan. That's lovely. And thank you, Q. That's also lovely. Very human of you, says Coleslaw. And Jonathan says, you're a joy and a talent. He's right. It's fun. It's fun. If you can't do it and have fun, don't bother doing it. It's not like I'm trying to do this as a full-time job where I'm fully paid up and I need to make the absolute most out of what I'm doing. It'd be nice to make a little bit out of it, but I'm not trying to do something like that, so therefore I don't have to cut out what is considered to be unnecessary, which in actual fact is what makes it real, is the sense of connection, is the laughing together, joking about things, all that sort of stuff. Wonderful. Bird's nest. I thought, well, okay, I couldn't actually find, it says empty nest, and what they mean is a nest that no longer has the birds in it. It's got the empty eggshells in it. That one, the jigsaw puzzle over there. And if you are watching on YouTube, come over and join in on Twitch sometime. It's great. Lots of fun. Now we've done that puzzle, that means I can get ready to do the raid over to, excuse me, I'm burping now, over to, hang on, digital dancers. When you go over there, say hi, and follow them and all that sort of stuff. You'll find that if you need something to do and you want something that's just a little bit to brighten up your day, they're good. As long as you're not headachy for noise, it's lots of fun. And they do interact a bit too, but they're busy dancing away and they're doing the stuff together, and they wear some really outrageous outfits sometimes too, so it's lots of fun. Anyway, so thank you very much for everybody being here and being part of the community and chatting together, and go Riki for the tips and the follows. There's people who've been following, and people who are chatting for the first time, like Mist. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And I'm just trying to type in my raid channel command. Digital there they are. Sorry, my I'm not really good at doing more than one thing at a time. I'd like to think I am, but I'm not. Definitely not. So stick around. Go with us. Yeah, go Riki. Bot killer by day, bot killer by night. Absolutely. Go for it. Go Riki. Follow everyone that you've enjoyed chatting with here today. Go and follow their Twitch channel. You'll be notified. Twitch will tell you when they're online, and it will give you somebody else that you can chat with, and because I'm only on 2 hours every 3 days. 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. New Zealand time, and my schedule on Twitch will actually show you in your time zone when I'm on, and I try to do it 3 days a week. Every now and then there'll be something that comes up. Anyway, so let's go and raid digital dancers. Don't forget to say hi, and give them a good follow, and have fun, and I shall go and see them. And it's been great having you here and having you joining in with the stories. Don't forget, happy reading. Bye.